Phenols, which can be thought of as substituted benzenes, can undergo electrophilic aromatic substitutions. The hydroxyl group of phenols tends to make the ring more likely to undergo substitution. The hydroxyl group activates the ring to substitution. Phenols undergo these substitution reactions more readily than benzene. The hydroxyl group of phenols tend to direct further substitutions of the aromatic ring to the ortho and para positions, that is, 2 and 4 positions. The hydroxyl group is ortho-para directing because the resonance structures of phenols make the ortho and para positions electron-rich. Notice in the resonance structure shown that the ortho and para positions have extra electron density at those positions. Let's learn about some important substitution reactions of phenols, starting with nitration. If you react phenols with dilute nitric acid at low temperatures, a mixture of ortho and para nitrophenols will be produced. The two isomers of nitrophenol have different physical properties. As the illustration shows, orthonitrophenol can participate in intramolecular hydrogen bonds. The para isomer can participate in hydrogen bonds between molecules. The intermolecular hydrogen bonds hold the para nitrophenol molecules together. The different hydrogen bond arrangements have important effects on the physical properties. Since the ortho isomer has only intramolecular hydrogen bonding, it has weaker intermolecular attractions than the para isomer, with its intermolecular hydrogen bonds. Therefore, orthonitrophenol is more volatile, with a lower boiling point, than para-nitrophenol, with a higher boiling point. We can use the difference in their boiling points to separate the isomers by steam distillation. Orthonitrophenol is steam volatile, but para-nitrophenol is not. The outcome of nitration of phenol varies with the reaction conditions. When a phenol reacts with concentrated nitric acid, the reaction produces 2,4,6-trinitrophenol, commonly known as picric acid. This reaction occurs in low yield. Picric acid is a stronger acid than phenol because of the presence of 3 electron-withdrawing nitro groups, which facilitate the release of hydrogen ion. It is explosive and was formerly used in artillery and munitions. Picric acid in the laboratory must be stored wet, else explosive metal picrates may form. It is used in several forensic applications: chemical synthesis and gram staining in biology. Another synthetic route with improved yield has also been developed for the synthesis of picric acid from phenol. In the first step of this process, phenol is reacted with concentrated sulfuric acid to form phenol 2,4-disulfonic acid. In the second step, phenol 2,4-disulfonic acid is reacted with concentrated nitric acid to form picric acid. Phenol also undergoes halogenation reactions. The reaction of phenol with bromine gives different products depending on the reaction conditions. Let's look at this in more detail. If phenol is treated with bromine in low-polarity solvents, such as chloroform or carbon disulfide. At room temperature, monobromophenols are produced. Unlike benzene, no Lewis acid is needed for this reaction to occur, because phenol is much more reactive than benzene. Both ortho and para isomers form, but the para isomer is the major product due to the steric hindrance at the ortho position. Alternatively, if you treat phenol with bromine water, 2,4,6-dibromophenol is produced as a white precipitate. The equation is shown here. Again, this reaction does not require a catalyst because phenol is quite reactive. Can you solve this problem on your own? Draw the structures of the major products expected when 3-fluorophenol reacts with bromine, in carbon disulfide, and with bromine water. You should recognize that the reaction conditions for part A result in monobromo derivatives. 2 isomers will form, but 4-bromo-3-fluorophenol is expected to be the major product. In part B, the reaction conditions favor multiple substitutions. 2,4,6-tribromo-3-fluorophenol will be the major product. Phenoxide ions are even more reactive than phenol towards electrophilic aromatic substitution. Several important reactions of phenols make use of this enhanced reactivity. In coal-base reaction, sodium phenoxide is prepared and then subsequently heated with carbon dioxide under pressure. Carbon dioxide, the neutral electrophile, attacks phenoxide ion to form sodium salicylate. The sodium salicylate, when acidified, forms 2-hydroxybenzoic acid or salicylic acid. The ortho position is favored in coal-base synthesis. Here is a problem for you to solve. Draw the structure of the major organic product formed when para-cresol 4-methylphenol is treated with the conditions of cold synthesis. Alkyl derivatives of phenol react in a manner very similar to phenol. Treatment with sodium hydroxide, followed by heating with carbon dioxide at high pressure, and then acidification, forms an ortho-hydroxybenzoic acid derivative. Ramer-Tiemann reaction introduces a CHO group at the ortho position of phenol. The Ramer-Tiemann reaction can be thought of as a two-step process. The first step is treatment with chloroform in the presence of sodium hydroxide to form a substituted benzyl chloride intermediate. Note that, in this reaction, chloroform reacts with sodium hydroxide to form dichlorocarbene, which is a neutral electrophile. The second step is hydrolysis of the substituted benzyl chloride intermediate in basic conditions, followed by acidification, which forms salicylaldehyde. Heating phenol vapors with zinc dust produces benzene as the major organic product. Here, phenol undergoes reduction in the presence of zinc dust to form benzene. Phenols are oxidized more readily than alcohols. Phenols can be oxidized either by chromic acid or silver oxide, a weak oxidizing agent, to produce conjugated diketones, which are commonly called benzoquinones. Can you predict the major organic product formed when 3-chloro-1,2-benzene-diol is treated with chromic acid? Since two hydroxyl groups are present, both will be oxidized into ketones. The double bonds need to be rearranged to make the diketone. When exposed to air, phenols will be slowly oxidized into quinones, even in the absence of an additional oxidizing agent. Upon aerial oxidation, phenol forms benzoquinone. Quinones are highly colored compounds. For example, benzoquinone is a bright yellow. Many synthetic dyes are actually quinones. Some quinones have important biological functions. Ubiquinone, or coenzyme Q, is essential for cellular respiration. Vitamin K is needed for proper blood clotting to occur. Two commercially important alcohols are methanol and ethanol. Let's learn about their production, properties, and uses. Methanol has the chemical formula CH3OH. It is commonly referred to as wood spirit or wood alcohol because it was first obtained as a byproduct from the production of charcoal from wood. Methanol is prepared on an industrial scale by the catalytic hydrogenation of carbon monoxide. This reaction requires high temperature and pressure, as well as a zinc oxide chromium 3 oxide catalyst. Methanol is a colorless liquid that is volatile and flammable. Its boiling point is 337 Kelvin. Methanol is highly poisonous. Ingesting as little as 30 ml can be fatal. Smaller amounts of ingested methanol can cause blindness. Methanol is used as a solvent in paints and varnishes. It is used as an antifreeze and windshield wiper fluid. About 50% of all methanol produced commercially is used to make formaldehyde. Ethanol has the chemical formula C2H5OH. It is primarily formed from the fermentation of sugars from various plant materials. First, the enzyme invertase converts the sugar in molasses, sugarcane, or fruits into glucose and fructose. Both glucose and fructose have the same molecular formula C6H12O6. Next, the yeast enzyme, zymase, ferments the simple sugars, glucose and fructose to form ethanol. Carbon dioxide is also released. In winemaking, grapes are the source of sugars and yeast. As the grapes ripen, the sugar content increases. Yeast grows on the outer skin of the grapes. When the grapes are crushed, the sugar and the enzyme zymase come into contact, which initiates the fermentation. Fermentation needs to be carried out under anaerobic conditions. If air gets into the container, the ethanol will be oxidized into ethanoic acid, that is, vinegar, which will ruin the taste of the final product. Zymase activity is inhibited once the alcohol concentration of the wine becomes greater than about 14%. Ethanol is a colorless liquid, which, like methanol, is volatile and flammable. It has a boiling point of 351 Kelvin. Ethanol is used as a solvent for paints, markers, perfumes, and other products. It is used to prepare various organic compounds. It is used as a motor fuel and fuel additive. Many bacterial hand sanitizers contain ethanol. Alcoholic beverages contain ethanol. Ethanol is a central nervous system depressant. In low doses, it leads to fewer inhibitions and reduced concentration. Poor judgment and slow reflexes are also hallmarks of ethanol consumption. In moderate doses, ethanol can cause slurred speech, drowsiness, and damage to the liver and the gastrointestinal tract. In higher doses, ethanol can lead to vomiting, breathing difficulties, and unconsciousness, which can be fatal. Chronic alcohol abuse can cause frontal lobe damage, neurological problems, and dependence. Alcohol and automobiles don't mix. Never drink and drive. To prepare ethanol on an industrial scale, ethene is reacted with steam. This reaction requires high pressure and a phosphoric acid catalyst on a silicon dioxide support. The overall reaction shown here is an oversimplification of the actual process used. Ethanol meant for industrial and commercial uses is made unfit for human consumption by adding certain chemicals. Additives, including copper sulfate, which lends a blue color, or pyridine, which has a foul odor, and even methanol, are used to produce denatured alcohol. One way to prepare ethers is by the dehydration of primary alcohols in the presence of an acid catalyst, typically sulfuric acid, at 140 degrees Celsius. Notice that two molecules of a primary alcohol form a dialkyl ether and water. For example, two molecules of ethanol undergo dehydration in the presence of concentrated sulfuric acid at 140 degrees Celsius to form ethoxyethane. This reaction does not work with secondary and tertiary alcohols. Note that secondary and tertiary alcohols produce alkenes via elimination. Ethers can be prepared by the dehydration of primary alcohols by an SN2 mechanism, which means that the reaction involves an attack by a nucleophile and is a bimolecular slow step. In the first step, the ethanol forms an oxonium ion or a protonated alcohol. In the second step, another alcohol molecule attacks the oxonium ion to form a dialkyl oxonium ion. This is the slow step of the mechanism. In the third step, the dialkyl oxonium ion loses a proton to form the ether. Notice that the hydrogen ion consumed in the first step is regenerated in this step. Here is a problem for you to solve. What alcohol would you use to prepare 1-propoxypropane? For problems like this, the best strategy is to work backwards from the product, which is a symmetrical ether. Since there are 3 carbon atoms on either side of the bridging oxygen, we need to use 1-propanol. Here is the overall equation for the synthesis of 1-propoxypropane or dipropyl ether. The reaction conditions drastically affect the outcome of the reaction. Adding sulfuric acid to primary alcohols at lower temperatures favors substitution reactions to form ethers. At high temperatures, however, elimination reactions are favored, which result in the formation of alkenes. An extremely important synthetic route to ether preparation is the Williamson synthesis. It can be used in the laboratory to produce either symmetrical or unsymmetrical ethers. In general, an alkyl halide is combined with a sodium alkoxide to produce an ether. A sodium halide is the byproduct. The Williamson synthesis works best with methyl or primary alkyl halides. The alkoxide can be primary, secondary, or tertiary in nature. For example, sodium ethoxide reacts with iodoethane to form ethoxyethane or diethyl ether. If secondary and tertiary alkyl halides react with alkoxide, then the reaction proceeds via elimination. The tertiary alkyl halide reacts with alkoxide to form an alkene as the main product. The Williamson synthesis can also be used to convert phenols into ethers, as shown here, by means of phenoxide ions. Can you answer this question on your own? Draw the structures of the most appropriate reactants for the preparation of tertiary butyl ethyl ether 2-ethoxy-2-methylpropane by the Williamson synthesis. Give the overall equation. Look carefully at the ether we want to make. It contains a primary carbon on one side of the bridging oxygen and a tertiary carbon on the other. For the primary carbon, we need a primary alkyl halide with 2 carbons. Ethyl chloride would be a suitable choice. For the tertiary carbon, the suitable alkoxide is sodium tertiary butoxide, which consists of a tertiary alkyl group. Now, we can see the overall equation for the synthesis of tertiary butyl ethyl ether. Why didn't we use the alternative combination of reactants for the previous problem, that is, sodium ethoxide and tertiary butyl chloride? We had noted earlier that the Williamson synthesis is only suitable for primary alkyl halides. This is because when secondary and tertiary alkyl halides react with metal alkoxides, elimination reactions tend to occur and alkenes form. The reaction of sodium ethoxide and tertiary butyl chloride would form 2-methyl-prop-1-ene as the major product. Let's consider the physical properties of ethers. Ether molecules have a net dipole moment. The carbon-oxygen bonds are less polar and arranged in space such that the dipoles do not cancel. However, ethers cannot participate in intermolecular hydrogen bonding with other ether molecules. The boiling points of ethers are similar to the boiling points of alkanes with comparable molecular masses. For example, N-pentene and ethoxyethane have very similar boiling points. However, ethers have lower boiling points than alcohols. Butan-1-ol has a much higher boiling point than ethoxyethane. This is because alcohols can participate in intermolecular hydrogen bonds, while ethers cannot. The miscibility of ethers in water is quite similar to the miscibility of alcohols with similar molecular masses. 7.5 grams of ethoxyethane can dissolve in 100 ml of water, just below the 9 grams of 1-butanol that can be dissolved at the same conditions. This is because ethers, like alcohols, can form hydrogen bonds with water. As a class of molecules, ethers are extremely flammable. They are volatile substances as well. Avoid this serious fire hazard. Never have open flames if ethers are being used in the lab. Generally, ethers have very low reactivity. They are among the least reactive of the functional groups that you will study. As the oxygen atom is attached to the two alkyl groups on either side of it, ethers are less reactive. Let us look at some important reactions of ethers. The ether linkage is quite stable towards oxidizing agents, reducing agents, and bases. The cleavage of the carbon-oxygen bond in ethers takes place only under vigorous conditions by acids. Hence, acid-catalyzed cleavage of ethers occurs only under drastic conditions. These reactions require an excess of hydrogen halides and heating. In the presence of hydrogen halides, an alkyl halide and an alcohol are produced. The alcohol formed under these conditions then reacts with another hydrogen halide molecule to form a second alkyl halide. Thus, when an ether is heated in the presence of excess hydrogen halide, two molecules of alkyl halide and a molecule of water are produced. For example, methoxyethane reacts with excess hydrogen iodide at high temperature to form a molecule each of iodoethane, iodomethane, and of water. Hydrogen iodide is the most reactive hydrogen halide in acid-catalyzed cleavage of ethers, followed by hydrogen bromide and then hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen fluoride is ineffective in these reactions. Let's look at the mechanism of this reaction in greater detail. In the first step, a proton is transferred from the hydrogen iodide to the ether to form an ethyl-methyl oxonium ion, which is a protonated ether. In the second step, which is the slow step of the reaction, the iodide ion, which is a good nucleophile, attacks the least substituted carbon of the dialkyl oxonium ion as shown. This produces ethyl alcohol and methyl iodide. Next, the alcohol that was just formed reacts with another molecule of hydrogen iodide and results in the formation of ethyl iodide and a water molecule. This happens via the formation of the intermediate oxonium ion as shown here. When tertiary alkyl groups are present in the ether, reactions with hydrogen halides will form a tertiary alkyl halide and an alcohol. This occurs because a different reaction mechanism is involved. It is an SN1 mechanism with a unimolecular slow step. Let's look at how the mechanism is altered when tertiary alkyl groups are present. In step 2, the dialkyl oxonium ion forms a carbocation as the less substituted alkyl group leaves. Notice that there is only one reactant in step 2, which is the slow step of the reaction. Then, in step 3, the carbocation attacks an iodide ion and results in the formation of an alkyl halide, which is the fast step of the reaction. Hence, the reaction is a unimolecular nucleophilic substitution reaction. Here is a problem for you to solve. Predict the products of this reaction. Notice that one of the alkyl groups contain a tertiary carbon. In the presence of hydrogen bromide, this group will form a tertiary alkyl bromide. The other alkyl group will form an alcohol. Alkyl-aryl ethers also undergo acid-catalyzed cleavage. The cleavage occurs at the alkyl-oxygen bond because the aryl-oxygen bond is more stable due to its partial double bond character. When the alkyl-oxygen bond breaks, phenol and an alkyl halide are produced. The phenol formed doesn't react further with another molecule of hydrogen halide to give an alkyl halide. Since the sp2 hybridized carbon of phenol cannot undergo a nucleophilic substitution reaction. Can you draw the structure of the major products that form when the molecule shown here reacts with hydrogen bromide? Since this is an alkyl-aryl ether, ethyl-phenyl ether, the alkyl-oxygen bond will break. One product will be phenol. The other will be ethyl bromide. Ethers will undergo oxidation in air to form explosive peroxides. Compounds such as diethyl ether, hydroperoxide are unstable and shock sensitive. Hydroperoxides can form in just a few days if samples are exposed to air. Always follow lab safety rules. Never use old bottles of dialkyl ethers and dispose ether samples properly. Let us now look at electrophilic substitution reactions of anisole, which is an alkyl-aryl ether. Anisole is the common name for methoxybenzene. The lone pair on the oxygen atom of the methoxy group activates the ring towards electrophilic substitution as shown in their resonance structures. Hence, it is ortho-para-directing. The para-isomer is the major product due to steric hindrance at the ortho position. The halogenation of phenyl alkyl ethers occurs at the para position by using bromine in ethanoic acid. No Lewis acid catalyst is required because of the presence of the ring-activating alkoxy group. Give the structure of the major organic product formed when this compound is reacted with bromine in ethanoic acid. The methoxy group is ortho-para-directing. So, both the para as well as the ortho isomers will form. The para isomer is the major product. Hence, para-bromoanisole is the major product. Phenyl alkyl ethers will undergo Friedel-Crafts alkylation. Phenyl alkyl ethers reacts with an alkyl chloride in the presence of anhydrous aluminium chloride, a Lewis acid, and results in the formation of ortho and para-isomeric products. The alkyl group of the alkyl halide will attach to the benzene ring at either the para or at the ortho position. For example, anisole reacts with methyl chloride in the presence of anhydrous aluminium chloride to form 4-methoxytoluene, which is the para isomer as the major product, and 2-methoxytoluene, which is the ortho isomer as the minor product. Friedel-Crafts acylation reactions are also possible. Phenylalkyl ether reacts with an acyl chloride in the presence of anhydrous aluminium chloride as a catalyst. This introduces the acyl group at the para and ortho positions. Predict the products of the reaction when anisole reacts with ethanoyl chloride in the presence of anhydrous aluminium chloride. Under these conditions, Friedel-Crafts acylation will occur. The para isomer, that is 4-methoxyacetophenone, will be the major product. Phenylalkyl ethers will undergo nitration reactions. For example, anisole reacts with a mixture of concentrated sulfuric acid and nitric acid to form nitroanisole. The nitro group is introduced at the ortho and para positions, and 4-nitroanisole is the major product.